Today I'm going to take my iPhone 5 and remove the housing from the back and basically completely gut the phone and put it into this new gold housing that I bought. And you can see here this comes not only with the assembly, we've also got the tabs that go onto the top and the bottom on the back of the phone. And they even went as far as to give us replacement gold SIM tray, matching gold SIM tray, volume buttons, power button, and the switch for the buzzer in here, so I'll get to that a little bit later. And what I'm going to do is, to make this kind of interesting, since I'm doing the conversion, I went ahead and got the luminescent apple on this back. So what's going to happen is when the phone's in use, this should light up, hopefully. We'll see how it works. I haven't tested this yet, so this is going to be all done live here. So I'm going to set these aside for the moment, and what we're going to do is begin by pretty much gutting the iPhone 5. And down on the bottom of the phone, right next to the charging port, we will have two small screws that need to be removed. Start with those, and probably another thing we want to do while we're at it is go ahead and power the phone off before we go too far. And see if we can zoom in here just a bit, give you a better view. Alright, so we've got our two bottom screws that we're going to remove. And taking the front piece off is not too difficult, but there are a few things you want to know, so you want to be very careful with this. Easy enough to damage it if you're not. One thing is, it's a little tough to take these fronts off. We used to be able to do the 3G and 3GSs with a suction cup. Sometimes you'll be able to do that with the 5. Mine might work since it's been taken apart so many times and the glass is not broken. And what we want to do is just kind of gently lift up at the bottom, and you can use your opposite hand to prevent the lens from opening too far. And if we get lucky, we might be able to open it, but usually what happens is, if anything, it may start lifting the glass away from the plastic edge that goes around the side of the phone. So I don't generally have too much luck with this. Sorry, I'm getting off camera a bit there. So you can kind of lift. You might be able to get it started down here, but in the worst case scenario, if you can't get it to open up, and remember, it's very important to make sure that you get the plastic frame around the edge to come out also, you can take a metal tool and just very carefully go under here, right about midways between the home button and the edge of the phone, and then just gently lift it up until it's just giving you access to the inside. And from here, we don't want to slide the metal tool around because it will eat up the edges of the plastic. So I'm going to take a regular pry tool and just very carefully go around the edge here. And again, make sure that you're actually getting between the plastic and the bezel, and you're not going between the glass and the plastic. If you do, this whole thing kind of starts to come apart. So I'm going to go down one side here and just flip it around and continue working around the edges. Probably should have zoomed out for this a bit. Alright, so hopefully you can see this. My monitor is a little difficult to watch from where I'm at. So okay, so you see how that kind of shifted a little bit. There's a little, if you're not careful, you get between the plastic and the glass. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure you go all the way up the plastic, right around the edge there. Okay, so once we've got it starting to open up, the important thing is we've got some cables on the inside right in this area, and we don't want to put any stress on those. So you can take just about anything. I'm actually using another phone case. I'm just going to set it right here at the top of the 5 and just very carefully open this up. And in some cases, you'll have to kind of pull it down a little bit to disengage it, because there are 3 little tabs here on the ledge at the top here that get shoved underneath, and it also likes to kind of get hung up on the main camera. So once you've disengaged that, you can just kind of lean this whole thing back. And again, you see as I'm coming back, the corner tends to get caught under the camera, so sometimes you just lift it straight up just a little bit, enough to clear the back of the camera there, and then just kind of rest it here. We just don't want it to go all the way over. I'd really like to just kind of keep this straight up ideally. So I'm going to go ahead and hold it with one hand. It's also a good idea to magnetize your driver before you go too far here, and that will make it easier to get the screws to come out and keep track of them. The first thing we want to do is disconnect the battery terminal. So these 2 screws right here will release a panel that keeps the battery plugged in. Make sure that you do keep your screws in order. If you're doing this conversion, there are quite a few screws inside of this phone, and as you probably already know, very few of them are interchangeable. So if you get them mixed up, it's really going to slow you down and take a lot of time to figure out what goes where. So we'll go ahead and pull this little metal tab up. Sometimes it'll stick to the back of the terminal there. This time it came out. My phone has been taken apart a few times before, so this is going to look pretty easy. I'll try to make every attempt to point out the areas that you have to be careful about. And what we'll do now is just take a pry tool and very carefully go under the battery terminal, pop that straight up to where it's disengaged, and now we can go ahead and remove the LCD. You always want to make sure your battery is disconnected before you start touching anything that can be grounded and cause a problem. So we're going to have 3 screws here. This screw by default is not going to stick to your screwdriver, so be careful when you get to that last one. In fact, what I'm going to do, I'll go ahead and do that one first just to show you. And in fact, I think this might have been mixed up at one point, and it actually did stick to the driver. That's usually not going to happen. Most of the time you'll have to go inside and dig around to try to find that one. So as you can see, that kind of released some of the tension on the LCD. We'll go ahead and take these other 2 out. We got one there and one right here. And once these 2 come off, well, that one didn't come quite all of the way. Looks like it might have been stripped from the last time this was worked on. So in that case, you will need to have your tweezers. Hopefully this doesn't happen to you. As I said, this is a phone I use for training, so a lot of people have taken this apart many, many times. A lot of times you have to kind of slide this toward you and disengage these clips on the bottom, which are what hold this little metal panel in place. So once you have that removed, I'm going to set my screws down over here so I know what goes with what. And now we can go ahead and proceed to remove the LCD. So we're going to have 3 pop connectors here that we are prying under. We got one right here. Be very careful with these. You want to make sure you don't pry anything you're not supposed to. And we got one right underneath it, and then a hidden one that you wouldn't really see until you've removed those 2. Yours will probably have some plastic foam tape over the top of them. This is a replacement screen, so that's kind of missing a few things there. But we're going to take this and set it aside. Keep that for later on. And the next thing I would recommend you do is go ahead and remove the battery from the case. So this can be a bit tricky. Sometimes you'll get lucky and these come right out. A lot of times they'll have a ton of adhesive underneath. And if that's the case, what you want to do is take your heat gun and just go over the battery long enough to get it nice and warm. Just not hot enough to melt anything, of course. And from here, you should be able to go in, and I recommend you only pry in this area right here. There's not too much damage you can do. If you start prying around other areas of the battery, you might cause some problems there. So a credit card or hotel room key tends to work pretty well in some cases. And you can see mine came off pretty easy. You might have to work at yours a bit. Just try to get the card inside here and then just lift. And as you go in, if you work your way inside, you can kind of just push it the opposite direction and that'll bring everything out. Set the battery aside, and now we will get to the fun part. Lots of little things inside the iPhone 5 that need to be disconnected. I'm going to start with the antenna wire down here on the bottom. That will lift straight up just like that. And then we're going to have one more screw here for another retaining panel which holds the charging port flex cable in position. And that will go ahead and remove. Again, you may have some adhesive under these on occasion. I don't know why. Some phones do and some phones don't. Once we do this, we can go ahead and disconnect the charging port right here very carefully. Let's see, I might even go under the, sorry about the shadow there, go under the cable and just kind of lift that up. You may have some, you'll almost definitely have some adhesive under here the first time you do it, so if you have to, apply some heat to make that more pliable. And we'll disconnect that. Up here at the top of the phone, let's move this around a bit. We're going to have a cable for our volume controls, power button, silent button right here that needs to be disconnected. What I like to do is kind of move this over and just stick it to the inside of the case. If you have some adhesive left, that'll kind of hold it in place and keep it out of your way while you proceed to disassemble the rest of the phone. And before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I do need to remove the SIM card. So let me find my SIM card removal tool here, and we'll go ahead and pop this guy out. And as you can, mine's pretty tight. I've got an adapter in here to unlock the phone, so yours should come out pretty easy. Why I have Telcel SIM card in there, I couldn't tell you. I have no idea where that came from. So Next thing we want to do is start removing screws. We're going to have tons of screws inside of this phone. We'll have these odd-shaped threaded barrels here. We've got 2 here and a third one right up here. We've also got a screw over on this side, and hopefully these are visible. I know we have a lot of shadows going on in here. We have one we're going to take out here. We're going to have a couple by the camera and several more actually, including the hidden one there. So just follow along and make sure you get everything out. I'm going to start at the bottom here, and as you can see, there's lots of stuff inside, so be sure that you keep these in order or your life will be miserable. We got those 2, and now what we're going to have to do is actually let's get this one out here on the side first of all. Alright, so we've got that one, and then we're going to have a hidden screw right here. So we'll have to go ahead and disconnect these 2 antenna wires very carefully. Just pop those off. And I'd leave them attached at one side if you can. You can see one of them actually unplugged by itself. No biggie. We'll come back to that later. So got one here in the center of the board. This guy can come out. And, you know, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect these for now. It's not too hard to remember where to put them because they only fit in this position. So we'll put those back in later on. And we've got a another threaded barrel up here in the corner right here that we're going to remove. And that one, of course, is not magnetized, or will not stick to a magnetic driver either. So you're going to have to kind of pick that one out. And be careful, hope you didn't lose it. And we're going to have 2 screws right here where the main camera is secured by this little metal panel. So we've got one here on the bottom, larger screw, and not sticking to my driver. Okay, and then we have another smaller one right up here. It's going to come out. Very small screw. And we can go ahead and remove this panel right here, which is kind of stuck to the camera. Something that got that looks like it got jammed inside of the camera right there. Kind of got the wrong position, so yours should come out pretty easily. Shouldn't have that problem. And we have another threaded barrel, probably going to be hard to see, right here next to the camera. Very small one. Have to get inside here. And take that guy out. Alright, so now we've got a couple more screws right here at the top that we want to remove. And those are a little tricky to see and easy to forget. So make sure that you get these 2 out, or you can easily tear those cables at the top. There's one. 2. And I'm actually using a 000 bit this time. I usually go with the 00, but these are very small screws. So you want to have something small that's going to grip and not strip out. And I think we've got all of our screws removed. Now what you want to do is very, very carefully lift this up, and the flash should come out with the camera up here at the top. And it looks like it disconnected there. So this is actually where the flash is, and it came out of the housing that holds it, so we'll have to address that later. More importantly, we have a wire here that needs to be disconnected, and you want to be sure that you take that out before you apply any force, otherwise you can have problems. So we'll disconnect that one, and then I'm going to go after this right now because we don't want to lose it. And well, that's really stuck in there. Might have to come back to that a little bit later. Let's see. Now, we are going to go ahead and remove this panel also. That will need to come out. And let's see, so we've got, I'm not sure where that's stuck in here this time. Usually that will come right out with the camera. It didn't this time. Alright, so we'll come back to that in a minute. I'm going to focus on the charging port right now. And let's see, we've got quite a few. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screws down here at the bottom that we're going to remove. And I'm going to start right here by the headset jack. And we've got 1, 2, and you can see this is your home button interface down here at the bottom, these two little metal prongs. And then we're going to have a large screw right at the top of the lightning connector on either side, and then 2 smaller screws down inside, same area. And then 1 more here on the end. So I'm going to try to do these in order, and then just work my way back to these 2 at the bottom. Very small, as you can see. And this should allow us to remove the charging port assembly and the external speaker, which is here. In fact, it may even lift up by itself. This guy is going to come up this direction, and it kind of folds over on the inside there. But we want to get the whole thing out, so we need to lift the headset jack. And it feels like I've got a little adhesive in here. So I'm going to go ahead and heat this up a little bit. And let's see if we can get this guy to come out. Now, looks like we've got the microphone down here wedged into that little channel. And this guy should come straight up, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I did complete teardown. And we do have adhesive underneath the lightning connector down here. You can kind of see it stretching away at the bottom. So I'm going to go inside of here and just kind of lift that a little bit. And that should release the majority of it. Although we do have some adhesive also under this flex cable. So mine's pliable enough to take out. And there you have your entire charging port assembly. You've got your external, your ringer speaker here, microphone down here, lightning connector, headset jack. So we'll take all that, set it aside. And let's see, it looks like we've got most of the materials out of the bottom that we need to remove, and I'm going to use this as a guide just to see if there's anything missing here. I've got to take it from the old phone. It looks like we got most of that. And now we get the fun part. Up here at the top, we need to take this entire volume flex cable out. And if I remember correctly, this should be our microphone. I believe that's going to be our speakerphone mic right here. And we're definitely going to need some heat here in just a moment. Okay, so I believe we've got about 6 screws at the top that need to come out. There's one here right next to the lock button or power button. We've got another one up here, which I believe is part of this assembly. Retaining clip for the motor, buzzer, another one there, and we've got a couple down here for the volume controls. All this stuff gets to come out. So we'll go ahead and take out the screws before we start worrying about anything else. I'm going to start down here at the bottom with the volume button. So these 2 screws we're going to take out. And there's going to be a panel that goes over these the volume controls. So after we get these 2 out, if I remember correctly, let's see if they are attached or not. Yeah, so we've got one more here at the top. So I'm going to go ahead and probably just take all these screws out right now. And we've got one big one right here. Another one for the motor, retaining clip. And I believe Well, let's see. I think that top one needs to come out at this point. Oh, it's got some adhesive behind this, it feels like. So that's kind of glued in on top of the motor. And we should have one more right up here, which I believe is holding that. Have to figure out where these go. All right, got one little screw up here right next to the motor. And that is the final screw that will release this guy. So if you have to change your buzzer, this is what you get to do to make it happen. We'll set that aside with all the screws somewhat in proportion or in relation to the position of all this other stuff. You can see this is the interface for the motor right here. And we might, at this point, be able to pull the volume buttons away, but we do have this flex cable secured with glue underneath. And then we have a real tricky challenge right here for the lock button, which I'm going to go ahead and take out right now. There's a screw. Whoa, these little round deals keep falling off, presumably from on top of these areas here. So I'm not sure that it's such a big deal, but if you do find these, you probably want to hold on to them for later on, and we'll set them inside the new case. I'm sure they're there for a reason. And hopefully you can see this. I've got a screw, a little tiny one right up here. It's going to come out. Do take note of the position of your lock button. If you try to put it in upside down, it will not go back inside the phone. So a lot of people have trouble at this point. I want to make sure that this is as easy as possible. So we had our two, and then a lock button. Excuse me while I talk to myself here. I'm laying all my screws out in the right position. So we're going to have to get underneath this cable. There's definitely going to be some adhesive, and this thing up here is going to be tricky because it's actually on a pivot right here, and we're going to have to open this up, and it's not going to open with all this stuff in here right now. So we'll go ahead and remove this cable as far as we can get. And again, we'll need some heat to make the adhesive a little more pliable. And then we can go and kind of pull this away. You want to be very careful not to tear this flex cable. Let's see if we can get underneath this guy. Very slowly. And again, do take note of the position that all of these cables are in. These things are paper thin, very easy to damage, but fortunately inexpensive to replace, although they do require quite a bit of labor. So we need a better pry tool at this point. So let's see if we can get under this guy. This is a nylon guitar pick. One of the best tools for this particular application at this point, because it's very thin and flexible. Although if you're not careful, you can still tear the cable. So do take your time and be liberal with the heat if it feels like it's sticking a bit too much. We can go ahead and get underneath this guy up here. What I would really like to do is get that camera flash cover out of the way. At this point, it's going to make things a little more difficult if we don't. So we'll see if we can get right next to here and just kind of pry that out. That's the cover for the flash. And boy, it just doesn't like to come out. Lots of glue underneath that one. So we'll set that aside also. Do remember where that goes. Alright, and now we can kind of expose this hinge right here, and this guy is going to open, if we're lucky. It is a bit tricky. Okay, so this should open. I think our microphone might be in the way. If we can go right over the top of it if you need to. You should be able to open this all the way up. And you can see this is the tricky part. This little hinge that goes around the outside for the power button. And we put it back together. We'll try doing it before we put the microphone down, see if that makes a big difference. But it will actually clear if you lift up on it just a hair. Now we've got this flex that we need to remove as well. So I'm going to continue to apply heat. I really don't want to have to do this twice. And if I damage the cable, that is exactly what's going to happen. So we'll go under here. We should be able to lift this out. Just be careful, there's some adhesive under there. And also at this point, do take note of the position of your power button. If you try to put it in upside down, it will not fit, but it will be frustrating. So you can see that this hinge, here, let's see if we can get that off. The hinge actually flips this direction, so when we go into the phone, this little metal bar is going to be on the top. So you want to remember that. Otherwise, you'll just waste a lot of time trying to put it in upside down. I'm speaking from experience here. All right, so we've got most of this out. Still got some more adhesive here at the top. Whoa, I don't know where that came from. Okay, and we are going to get underneath this guy. Again, a little more heat should make the job easier. Just kind of awkward to get underneath this, and you can see this little metal ring that may be of one of the type that fell out earlier, so I'll have to go back and look at the video. Make sure we get those back into the right position. Oh no, that's actually attached to the cable, so we're going to go under here and take everything out very carefully and make sure we don't have any other, we're not attached to anything else. The main concern is that if anything's screwed in, you can tear the cable. Oh, and by the way, our lock button just fell out. On this one, you want to take note that the red side of the lock button is going to be facing the front of the phone. So when we put this back in, if we're looking at the phone from this direction, this red side is actually going to be facing the top. So if you try to put that in backwards again, it will actually not slide properly. It probably won't even fit in once you put the flex cable into position. So this is the funnest part of all, getting this guy to come out without damaging anything. So I am kind of pushing on the inside there, and we have our main volume and lock flex cable removed from the phone. Set that aside, and as you can see, we have another cable here. It's part of the antenna system, to the best of my knowledge, and that's going to have to come out also. And at this point, I will probably start transferring some of these parts to the new case, because that just makes life easier and less likely to make mistakes. We'll hit this with the heat one more time. This is really sticky in here. And now we should be able to get underneath. I think I could design a better tool myself, but this should get us by for the moment. Let's see if we can go in here very carefully and just peel this away from the back of the case. Okay, and there you have it. That is that little antenna wire, which I actually cannot install yet because I haven't put the back onto the new thing. So we will also set this one aside for now. And we can go ahead and remove our volume buttons. Don't worry about making any mistakes with these. That makes it easy, plus and minus. We know which direction we're going. And now I'm going to take a look and see what else we need to move. Apparently, all this hardware inside here needs to be transferred as well. And we have the back panel that we're going to replace. So it looks like we've got just our SIM card tray ejector mechanism here. and then a couple of these guys on either side that are going to have to come out. So SIM card, ejector, relatively easy. I'm going to fold this over here. Keep that out of the way for now. And go ahead and take this guy out just like that. You can see there's a screw that goes through there. It's a one-of-a-kind screw. Difficult to mix that up with anything else. Has kind of a unique design. And then we're going to go ahead and remove these little deals here on the side. Each one has 2 screws securing it. And we'll have a total of 4, it looks like. And wow, I got stuck inside of that one. And 2 more down here. These are actually different sizes, so that one will be easy to figure out where it goes. By the way, don't even worry about this plastic tab when you remove your battery. There's about a 99% chance that it won't do you any good if you pull on it, so I'd recommend just not even bothering. Use your heat and a credit card or another pry tool that's not sharp. You don't want to puncture a hole in the battery. And don't worry about that plastic tab. It will most likely tear off if you pull on it. Alright, and I believe that should be just about everything. Looks like we have all the other parts on the other half. Except for this little plastic piece that's going to have to go inside at the bottom. So we do actually need to remove at least one more thing. And we've got a little metal piece here. Let's see, I'll flip this around. We have this little metal piece right here. It looks like it's going to have to transfer as well. So let's start with the bottom. This one's easy enough to see. And we'll heat this guy up. And plan is to move it over directly. So I think if we push at the bottom, no, can't push at the bottom of this one. I was thinking 3G. Okay, so we're going to get underneath this little plastic assembly, and you can see these little, whatever you want to call them, keep falling out. These are on just about every little round screw hole we have, so I have to transfer those over to the new housing. I want to be real careful not to break this thing, so I'm just trying to get behind it gently. See if I can unstick it from the frame. This looks like it may be its own piece. So we can go ahead and pull this one out. And this will be our microphone routing mechanism that feeds the sound through that little hole at the bottom. At this point, I'm just going to go ahead and move this over right away. Actually, yeah, we should be able to do that. So go ahead and put this into the new housing right now. And hopefully it will fit. Other thing is, you always have to be careful about where you buy your parts from. Sometimes they don't fit the way they're supposed to. However, this one seems to be okay. Sound like it just snapped into place there. Alright, and then we're going to have this other plastic piece at the bottom. Goes around the sides of the lightning connector, and there's a mesh cover over the speakerphone that'll keep it from getting any debris inside. And I think we might have to heat this up a little bit more. Stuff's pretty sticky at the bottom. I can imagine it would be easy to crack these pieces, so do be careful. Although this is not crucial that it stay in one piece, it's preferable. And this guy is really stuck in here. Looks like I finally got underneath it right there. try to preserve as much of the adhesive as we can. Oh, looks like we have a completely separate piece right here. So I'll just go ahead and lift that out, and then you'll notice on this side there's actually a mesh covering the bottom. We want to transfer that over also. And the plan is to do it without poking any holes. So I think the best tool at this point would be a razor blade, because getting inside of this thing is going to be tricky. Just try to get underneath here without denting it too much. Although that may be a little tough. And of course we don't want to cut through it. We just want to get underneath it. Boy, it's sticky stuff too. Alright, so that's what keeps your speaker clean and functioning. I hope that this is enough adhesive to just transfer it over directly without having to add anything. And then this little plastic piece will go right over the top, just like that. And we should be okay with that. And let's see if we can get this other piece out from the charging port area right here. Okay, so this guy is going to go right down there at the bottom also. Helps keep everything lined up nice and straight and centered. And those all do kind of pop into place, although that one didn't sit all the way in. I think I've got this other one in the way at the moment. You might have to shift these around a bit. In fact, you might want to just start with the centerpiece. Oh, let's see. I've got to kind of clip it in at the bottom, but it doesn't really feel like it's sitting in there straight just yet. So I'll pull this one back a bit. Yeah, I'd say go ahead and put the centerpiece in first, and then these other two can follow. And that should be where we need it. Alright, so everything else at the bottom seems to be in the right place. I'm not sure it's really all that important to worry about these little round pieces here. I may just leave them out, but yeah. If you see them, I suppose it won't hurt. Put them back in. Alright, so we've got everything down here. Looks good. And we do need to put this panel onto the back. And the reason you do this is there are different choices in colors. You can do these in different colors on the back. I'm just going to go with the standard white. And it's just a 3M adhesive that's going to hold these on. So they're very easy to change. If you ever want to customize your phone, you can change out these little panels. No big deal. And the fun part is getting this stuff off. Alright, so this has actually got a piece down here, and it is a little bit crooked, but I think that'll spin around. So we'll go ahead and put this in and straighten that out. Well, let's see. Let's try this. Yeah, you can actually spin this around a bit. It wasn't quite straight, but it does move, so not a big deal. Pull the plastic back, and this should sit right in just like that. And I suppose we might as well go ahead and do the same at the bottom. This is tricky. Right. And sometimes a fingernail is the easiest way to get these things started, it looks like. And try not to wear out the adhesive in the meantime. Actually, don't need that plastic, do we? Okay, so this will go right on the back, just like that. So that's what our back is going to look like, and hopefully the app will light up by the time we get done with this. Alright, so I'm looking at the bottom here, and we do actually need to move one more piece of hardware, and that is going to be this little ring that goes around the headset jack. So we will heat this up once and hopefully one final time. And then we should be able to push this through to the inside very carefully. Don't want it to go flying away. It's probably out of focus, but I need to get a little away from the table for a moment here. Let's see if we can get this from the inside then. This is going to be a tricky one, I can tell. There we go, starting to move slowly but surely. And now we can get this, I hope. And just go ahead and work around the sides there. It's got some adhesive in it, and it is shaped kind of like an oval, the outer part. So this should drop right inside, although it seems odd that we would have a silver piece. So I wonder if they actually gave us... it looks like the one thing that they didn't send is a gold headset jack bezel. So this is actually going to be silver. But then again, so is the lightning connector area. So I'm not too worried about it. Just surprised. I've had a few of these for other phones that come in and they give you every single piece. This one you're actually going to still have some silver on the bottom of the phone. So hopefully that's not a big deal. And we'll go ahead and put these little side pieces in now before we forget. And it looks like the easiest way to do this is to thread one of your screws, or get one of your screws on any of the driver first. Then you can line this up, and that will keep it in place because they don't really stick until the screw goes in. In fact, it looks like these are, I may be imagining things, but it looked like two of these screws are a different size. Maybe not. And we'll go ahead and put our SIM card ejector in at this point. And that's going to go with the tabbed area here, right where the little hole is to eject SIM card. So make sure you get that in the right direction. Otherwise you'll have to go back in here and redo it. Okay, and that's going to sit right there. And you shouldn't have to tighten that down too much because it is going to be moving around a bit. So that way when you push this in, if I can find it. Oh, there we go. So that will force the SIM card out of the phone, the tray that is. Alright, so we've got the other two on this side. And that felt like it cross-threaded there for a minute. Let's try that again. There we go. Alright, so we've got those pieces into place. All the hardware at the bottom, I believe. I'm going to check one more time. You don't want to have to go back and do this again. because it is a bit tedious. Alright, looks like we're good at the bottom, most of the side parts, and now we have a few more major components we need to install. I guess we can go ahead and put the charging port back in at this point. So you're going to route your microphone into this little deal here that has a piece sticking up in the center. So that's got to go into the center of this, otherwise your microphone, you're not going to be able, nobody's going to be able to hear you talking, because that does route the sound into the phone. So that should go right, and it's kind of easy to line up from the outside if you watch what you're working with here, although I'm wondering if we might want to add some adhesive down here at the bottom, because there is a big piece right here that holds everything into place. So I'm going to go cut a piece real quick of 3M, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I just cut a small square of 3M adhesive here, and I'm going to set this inside the housing. Kind of keeps the charging port assembly in place somewhat. I'll stick this right down here at the bottom. That did not come with the housing, and neither did any directions for that matter. So Alright, so I had a brief interruption there and just realized that my main microphone was turned off, so I'm actually using the mic on the iPhone 5S. Hopefully it sounds decent. Hopefully it sounds better than the iPhone 5 did anyways. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we've got our adhesive strip in the inside of the bottom, and we're going to install the charging port assembly, headset jack, all the above here. And this can be a little tricky to maneuver into place, but I think I want this little metal tab to go in first. Feed this from the bottom, and you can see that it doesn't look like my adhesive is really doing much. Oh, it's holding the flex cable in place. So I guess we are okay there. And now we should be able to go ahead and start putting some of these screws back in. For these smaller screws at the bottom, you might want to just use a tiny one of those little screwdrivers that come with the replacement parts. But I'm going to stick with my Husky for the majority of this. And of course we want to make sure everything is lined up properly. Put the big screws in first. And we'll see if we can, looks like we've got plenty of clearance, so this driver will work just fine. We're getting the rest of this together. Be careful not to over tighten these, they do strip quite easily. Alright, so we've got this all in. And now we will proceed to the fun part. And what's interesting is what they've done here is actually to not have the pin that goes into this hinge installed. So they've actually shipped that with all those other little gold parts they sent us. And this will probably make our job a little bit easier. But you can do it either way if you're working with a new phone. It's not that big of a deal. What is challenging, however, is to get this little thing attached to the flex cable in the right position. So what we're going to do first is go ahead and put our power or lock button in. And remember that little hinge is going to be, or this little metal bar is going to be facing upwards. So that's going to sit just like that. That's the only way you're going to have freedom of movement on the inside. And I'm going to prop this up just to kind of keep it from shifting, if I can find something to put under here. And that should stay in place. Okay, and what we need to do now is take our power button, and it is going to go inside just like this. Oh, that was good. That didn't really work the way I hoped it had. Hoped it would. Okay, so what's nice is they do have a little hole here that acts as a guide, and if you've got enough residual adhesive, you can use that to stick that into place. If not, you might have to add a little bit. That's going to go just like that. Do you want to make sure this is straight? These things have to be perfectly fitted or they do not function properly. And you can see I already moved that around a little bit. And we want some non-magnetic tweezers when we're working with this so it doesn't stick to anything. Alright, so that's going to go right there. And this is going to be interesting without having that little pin installed ahead of time. And I can already tell this is going to be a headache. So let's go ahead and put this in first of all. Just like that. Okay, so what we need to do is get behind this. So that wraps around that little pin and it should move freely on the inside, although you have to just kind of mess around with this until you get it lined up properly. And mine is not in the right position. So as you can see, what we want to do is wrap this little piece around the hinge. And you might have to lift it up a bit. Doesn't seem to want to move. And I'm not sure why. It feels like it's stuck. Oh, and I can see why, because a little metal bar flipped down. So you want to make sure that is going up before. Oh, that is just a headache. Now, this should go. It's really awkward. Okay, so that's the way that's supposed to fit. Now we've got to get the flex on the inside, and why isn't my autofocus staying focused? Okay, sorry about that. Hopefully we didn't lose too much on that part. So now the tricky part is getting under here and getting this flex cable into the right position. I'd rather have done that beforehand, but if we're lucky, we should be able to line everything up here. And I'm going to put that top screw in as soon as I find it. No, that's not it. It should be this one right here. And if we put this in, if we did it right, our power button should spring back when we click on it. And it is not in the right position. So I'm going to have to play around with this a bit until it starts working properly. I'm going to pause the video and come back and tell you what happened in just a moment. Alright, so it looks like our gold power button came without this little metal disc here. So this is going to have to transfer over the centerpiece because this just doesn't reach the switch in order to actuate the lock mechanism. So what we've got to do is very carefully, and do not lose this or it will you're not going to have a power button. So getting this off may be tricky. I'm going to try applying some heat and hopefully I can get this off without losing it. That is my objective. or anything else for that matter. It really annoys me when they do everything right except for one little tiny detail that is crucial to the operation of the phone, and that would be this piece right here. You wonder why they just didn't go ahead and install that. But hopefully, if you order one of these, you'll be luckier than I am. So this has got to transfer over. Otherwise, we have no lock function. And I'm glad that didn't shoot off across the room. That would have been bad. Alright, so again, I think I'm going to pause the video here in a second if I don't get this on, because I don't want to torch you, make you watch this whole process. Or you can just skip ahead, I suppose. Alright, so we want this to be centered. Why? Why does that have to be a separate piece? I do not know. Doesn't make sense. I guess that's an Apple thing. Alright, so we'll get this down inside the way it's supposed to be. Any luck? Just, it fell all the way out. That's fine. Alright, so, yeah, that's nice. Okay. So let's try something. I was going to say different, but changed my mind. Tried it the other way and it didn't work out too well. Let's get this pin installed right there. It literally just kind of sits in there. There's nothing that locks it into place. So it's kind of strange, and we will go ahead and try to, I'm going to probably end up adding some adhesive to this. Just doesn't seem to be sticking. We'll try it one more time. See if we get lucky. Alright, let's put some 3M on here. Good to have a thing of this laying around. We shouldn't need much, just a little tiny bit, right about like that. Should do the trick. And you might want to zoom out a bit here. Not too far. This stuff's always fun to work with. But we'll make everything stick. Long enough to get this installed. At least that is my plan. Okay. Now, if we can just get lucky one time. Get that wrapped around the hinge, close it down, and we'll test it first. You can actually feel the button clicking now. Go ahead and get this screw in, and that will be one of the trickiest things about this. So don't get frustrated. Be persistent, be patient, and now we have a functioning lock button. We can go ahead and set this in place. Although it seems like our adhesive is not on the cable, but was rather inside the phone. So I'm also working around these leads until we get to that part. So this should sit down in here. And remember, we had this little piece for the antenna mechanism that went right next to it, and you can line that up using this little deal as a guide right here. So there will be a screw going through there later, and if you need to, you can add some adhesive. I think we might need to do that under this piece. So again, we'll cut some 3M, just a little bit. And we'll see if we can maneuver this in here somehow. Doesn't need to be perfect. Just want to get it underneath the general vicinity. That way when we set this down, should be able to stick it in place right like that. Okay. Alright, so far so good. Now, we get to the fun part. And let's see, why don't we start with the volume buttons instead of having this flopping around all over the place. So we've got our gold buttons here that are going to go beneath this. And be very careful around these cables, of course. Make sure we have the plus facing up. And I believe this is going to go on the outside, if I remember correctly. That should go over the top, but we do need to get our lock or silent buzzer actuator in place. So what I recommend you do is put this switch in the down position, in other words that direction towards the bottom of the phone. That way when you set this in, gravity will kind of put it into the right position. You can move this down right on top of it, and if you hold it in place you should be able to click the switch. If that's the case, keep your hand there and move directly over to the volume button screws as quickly as possible. Actually, we can put this top one in also. There's another option here. If you want, you can just grab this top screw. It goes right up here and get that one in. And that should hold this in place, and then we'll take, I'm going to go with the center. Well, let's try this again. That's interesting. I am not clicking anything for some reason. When I push down here, I'm not reaching the switch. So something is amiss. And I'll bet you it is these. Once again, they did not put the metal discs on the button. Now, what is wrong with some of these vendors? You've got everything perfect and you leave out one little silly thing. So let's go ahead and I will pause the video, and what I'm going to do is move these two little discs over to the new button, just like we did with the lock button. Alright, so let's try this again. You can see I moved the metal discs over to the new button, and now when we put this into position it should actually function properly, and this is already sticking on the inside here because of the adhesive. There we go. Set that into place, and we'll have to go through the process again with the switch. Okay, so we want to make sure that we put the volume button panel in before we put this one in. That way these things should tighten down far enough that the actuators actually work. And you know, I can't do the top one just yet because I've got to get, actually we do need to lay everything into position here. So what we're going to do is start with this piece here. Let's go this direction. Now we'll go over the top. So now we put all three of these back in. have a functioning volume button. I have to say the volume down button doesn't feel as tight as I had expected. It does click if you push hard enough, but I might go ahead and add a shim over here later on. But technically it is functioning, so yeah, it's about as close, I suppose, as you can expect to accuracy for an aftermarket product. Everything else seems to be working great. Volume down is a little iffy. It does work. It does click, but it's less than perfect. Alright, so what happened is, this is not situated correctly at the bottom. Charging port, apparently I was in a hurry and wasn't paying attention, so we need to readjust this bottom part and take these two out so we can disconnect the battery. And then somewhere down here we have a problem. It looks like right about here. Something didn't go in the way it was intended to. So we'll have to reposition this, and that means all of these screws will probably have to come out. Oh, let's disconnect the battery. That was my intention. Probably can add some adhesive to that. Alright, so I believe I see the problem. This should probably go appears to be right. Now something is definitely out of position here. Let's try that. And there we go. Much better.
If you found the video helpful, hit the like button, share it with your friends, subscribe to my channel, and follow me on Twitter or Facebook. Post your questions in the comment section below or visit gocellphonerepair.com/forum. Thanks for watching.